Excited to introduce one of our musicians, the Maji.
Asia, good evening. I'm Wayne Winding Eagle. Uh, Thank you for joining me this evening. Uh, we are on today to introduce a fellow musician friend of mine. Uh, a lot of people know him by his real name. I know him by his real name, but in my life and in this time, and with respect to my brother here, he's just known as Maji.
Or Magi,
Or Magi.
depending on what side of the coin you stand on, right?
Right, right. And the reason I'm introducing Maji to you is because he has just recently dropped a new CD that you can get through either via online, I believe.
Yeah,
correct?
Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, you name it.
And also through Shaman Bag Boutique, we will be selling some hard copies of the CD if you'd like to have a hard copy of the CD. That will be coming a little bit later on, probably in the next few weeks. We'll be having the hard copies of his new CD in the store. Also, and he also does have some other music that if you're interested in, please go and check out his music. He's got some very beautiful music. Some of it's a little sensual, I have to say. But other than that, go ahead, Maji, and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're originally from, and just give us a little background about who you are and your music and so on and so forth, and let us know how what the spirit tells you. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Well, well, how I usually introduce myself to many is, hello, I am Magi, I am you. However, a little more about me. I was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico. However, I wasn't raised on the island. I was actually brought up to New York.
Okay.
When I was like 5 months, moved all throughout New England for a little
So you're
while.
in New York, Puerto Rican, right?
Yeah, from like not. I wouldn't really necessarily call myself that. My mom does.
Oh, okay.
She's very proud of it though. No, but I was very young. I was a toddler. We ended up.
Please, no one take offense to that little joke. That's just something between us.
So we ended up moving from there to Rhode Island. We ended up traveling Connecticut, Massachusetts. All throughout New England. There was something there.
Traveler.
Yeah, of the 13 states, I would say that I stepped foot at least in 10. From there, I came down here in 2004, which was basically more for the family because the family started moving down here one by one. But then after that, like sporadically, I only lasted here like a year and a half or something like that. I actually went up to Milwaukee, stayed up there for 7 years, and from there I learned a new setting, learned the Midwest, learned about Chicago, learned about Minneapolis, St. Paul, of course Milwaukee itself, the other cities that might be unknown to Floridians or any other people, but like Appleton, Madison, Sheboygan, Racine,
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have traveled the different areas that you have traveled? Would you say that some of the music that was in those areas might have influenced some of the music that you do today?
Indeed. I mean, I'm pretty sure that anybody that listens to my music will understand that it has a hip-hop or what people might want to call a trap feel, but it's not that necessarily.
Sorry about that. We got airplanes flying over.
Yeah, but it's mostly because I have a philosophy. You got to stick to your roots, and before I had the consciousness, and the blessing to understand my ancestral roots. When you come and ask me of my childhood, which is everyone's roots is your childhood, I remember of concrete jungles, the boom, boom, booming from the people outside, a whole crowd of people rapping in the corner. I didn't have that chance to see palm trees and guitars and congas and bongos until later on in life. You see, everything was mostly, you know, hip hop or reggaeton or bachata at the time, you know, but everything was CDs, you know, and it was a typical little, you know, New York where what you would see there growing up, and then from there, everything just blossomed into being that. So I really wasn't into rural areas or suburban areas. It was mostly urban areas. So it's a very different culture.
Right.
So that's when my music comes in with heavy bass, hi hats, and snares, kicks that resembles a lot of the hip hop movement. Simply because that's the music that moves in me.
Right. And I have been I've had the luxury personally of listening to him mix some of the music that he does, and the steps that he goes through, folks, just is absolutely beautiful. And he's even let me kind of help him out a little bit, you know. He's mostly the music genius, though, and I have to give that to you, brother. I really do.
Thank you.
But you said you had also moved into the Midwest, and you know that's a whole different type of music and those areas. And all.
You'll be surprised. When I went to the Midwest, I was actually around a lot of Hispanic people, a lot of Puerto Ricans, and a lot of Mexicans for sure. I was still around the very multicultural, you know, very multiverse people. Like, you know, I was African Americans, white, Asian, like you name it. But I got
all
into,
have different influences.
of course. But I, you know, Africans, which actually I absorbed a lot of their influence.
Okay.
Spiritually as well. But sorry. But yeah, I got into making a lot of reggaeton, you know, a lot of which is like a Puerto Rican or Hispanic genre of music, which promotes basically a lot of sensual things, and there might be some romanticism in there, but it's usually led with sensual things and all that stuff. And I made over 200 songs, all of that genre, before I actually truly found my, you know, my way.
Now, the new CD that is more of a spiritual type based music. You said that you've now you've told me in private conversations that you feel like that's where you really need to start moving in your music. And would you kind of explain the reason why you feel like, you know, and my experience has always been the Great Spirit talking to me. Is it the same with you? Whether, you know, obviously we come from two different types of backgrounds, you know, but would it be the same in your aspect also?
Well, indeed. Before I commence with the story, let me clarify that the words and the vocabulary that I will be using is the words and vocabulary that is familiar to me and familiar to the spirituality that has been bestowed upon me. So when I speak of the word God, I am speaking of the governance order of the divine. It is the supreme being, which is a vast majority of frequencies which make up what we know the Great Spirit. So to respect to other religions, I would like to commence. Well, my family grew up in a Christian home.
Okay.
And Pentecostal actually. So everything, yeah. So
Amen.
You know, so everything is the evangelization is everything is either angelic or demonic. There's not a fine line in between.
Right.
So it was a moment, you know, when I was a kid, there was a lot of confusion going on with how it is, you know. And later on, I started understanding that it was due to generations. So not all messages are for all generations. But so there was one time I was at least, I would have to say I was like 11, 12-ish or 13. I was in church. My mom was heavy in church, and I you know, I've always loved music because I started playing the piano when I was 6 years old. I started dabbling into it. I started actually producing music when I was 13, 14.
Right.
So I was in church with my mom before we had separated from the church, and there was a preacher that came in from Puerto Rico. Like he was out of town, from out of town.
Okay.
He didn't even know me really, so I just met him one time and spoke, and that's it. Little did I know, I remember one time he asked for everyone to come up to the altar to pray, and I was ignorant, I was young, and that's what many people today would think of. I used to say, oh, these people must be very desperate. They might be like sheep and stuff. So, I was like, so let me just go ahead and give them the way. Let me go ahead and let them go first. I'm not nobody to go up and hog anyone's prayer. This is what I used to think.
Right.
So I was sitting there. I was just literally standing there to not sit down and look like to look like a butthead. So I was just standing up in church and looking at everybody praying, and out of nowhere he just turned around from praying to people and looked at me in the eye from across the church. And my mom at this she was actually recording it with an old school camcorder.
Right.
He said, "You, here, now, on the altar." I'm like...
Oh, he got everybody's attention on that one, huh?
It's like, yes, you. And my family called me Tito. So like, Tito, here on the altar. I'm like, okay. All right, let's go. So I walked up to the front, and I just stand up to the front of the altar. It was like, up here. I was like, okay. Mind you, the first musical experience I've ever had was in church. When I was 3 years old, I sang in front of a crowd. I should have started with that one. But that I just had flashbacks of then. I was like, oh man, I'm back on a stage on church. He held me, like it was just me and him, looking at eye, and then he started talking to me. And it wasn't really him. It wasn't really the preacher, I could tell because of the frequency. I can tell because it felt like I was under shamanic medicine when he was speaking to me. I didn't understand it when I was a little kid, but as I grew up, I felt it, and I deja vu to it so many times. And he said, people have hurt you, people very close to you, and the first person I thought about was my father. He said, you must not worry about them, because anyone that tries to hurt you will disappear like they are pulp. They would turn into pulp. You are gonna make music for me. You're going to lead a ministry of music for me. And I looked at, and I couldn't look at him in the eyes. Like, I felt this vibration just come over me, and I had to look down, and I started just. So as I left off, I was making this music to appeal to the other people, to the greater common. So I was talking about, like I said, reggaeton. I was talking about sex. I was talking about drugs. I was talking about alcohol. I was talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Almost borderline misogynistic in my songs. Now that I come to think about it, I listen back to it. It's like, this is the influence that they give me. So I was borderline gonna make it. I was like borderline in my eyes, in my opinion. I'm almost there. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get signed. I came to Florida. I in the midst of meeting my wife, which was at the time my best friend or my coworker. I got into a studio called Studio 18, and I made a whole album, which is the raunchy album that you hear. That was around 2013, 2014, mind you. So I was still pretty young. I was 19, 20. So I made the whole album, and with that album, I met this very influential guy, and I thought this was it. This guy is giving me projects. He says, write something to this. I want to sign you. He's gassing me up. He's inviting me to places. I'm like, oh man, I've been manifesting this person since I was in Milwaukee. I'm like, this is it. Well, truth of the matter is, with every spiritual awakening, things ain't that easy, and things are never that smooth.
No, they're not.
I met him one time. He loved me. He loved my songs. I met him in the studio the second time. He loved me. Got my songs. But then I got approached by what I call the light and the dark entity at the same time. At the same time. I would never thought at this moment I was ignorant. I had thought that I was light versus dark.
Right.
But when I saw them both approach me at the same time, like a game of choice, that was the moment of truth. I asked a colleague to please bless me with ceremonial medicine that I needed guidance upon. And he felt comfortable enough to let me guide myself. So amongst my trances and amongst my connection with the spirits, my life was laid out in front of me and showed me tomorrow you can get signed and get a lot of money. You can get this, you can get that, you can get that, you can get that. But at that point my wife was sick with postpartum depression. And she was not home. And things were getting rough. And I had to give up my family, including my newborn daughter. And I have 3, so my third. So I had to give them all up. And then when I saw where they would be, it was nothing pretty. So I bowed down and I gave myself to both mother and father. And I asked for guidance. The third time I met that influential person, I met him in the studio in a U-Haul with all of my stuff from the house. From there, I have to say that my best music happened in the midst of the greatest war of my life. I've always said that the best music comes pain. When I started transitioning into making shamanic music, as you know, people would like to call it, or music of the light, or clean music.
Which is the new album.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. The new album, I made it, but I actually have a set of songs that I'm going to release this Christmas. It's called Redemption. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, many people have heard the songs.
Be on the lookout for that, that CD.
Many people have probably heard the songs. I've sang it live for like a year or 2 already, or 3 years already, these songs. But I wrote these songs in the midst of my awakening, and that's when the shamanic medicine started happening. I was stuck. I had no idea. The dark was trying to get a grasp of me. The light was speaking to me. Spiritual awakening. Everybody feels crazy. It's society. In the midst of homelessness, in the midst of transitions, the whole album that's gonna be dropping in Christmas is gonna come through. It's gonna happen. The reason why I haven't dropped that one first is because it's influential. It's very so.
Like I was saying, the CD does have a couple of raunchy songs, but it's a very excellent album. It was beautiful music. I have the album. My better half and I do enjoy that album. So don't worry. It's got a couple of songs that are definitely adult oriented. But no, it's a very good album. So yeah, please, if you're interested in that album, please order it. If you want a hard copy, that will also can be available through Shaman To change gears a little bit, I also would like to talk to you. I understand that you are involved with a community garden here in Orlando. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that, will you? And Shaman Way is involved with the garden also. We try to help in the best ways we can with getting help for the garden and everything. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
So, which is perfect because it connects in the midst of the homelessness and in the midst of making the music. I was losing faith in making the music. I was because of the people around me.
Okay.
The people around me were like sucking more energy than they were reciprocating, and I even told my wife many times I considered like quitting all completely. So at that point, Hurricane Irma came, hit us. We were homeless. We actually had a roof over our head and we were staying over somebody's house, but we were. I'm going to say it because I'm in a better position. I'm healing from it myself. We were staying in a room. Me, my wife and my 3 children, and a small room, smaller than this place, and it smelled like straight dog piss. And it wasn't where I wanted to be in life. And my wife and I were starting to get into the natural side of things because of all the hurricanes, and we got into survival mode. So it got to the point that we started cooking what we call sancocho, which is like a stew of a whole bunch of root vegetables outside and burning fire. And we looked at each other and it's like, man, we couldn't do this when everybody else is scattered trying to go to fast food restaurants in the middle of a hurricane. So we were like, okay, something is going on there. Little did we know, Hurricane Maria came on too. And we're like, man, what's going on? That hit home, that hit Puerto Rico. So the garden started because of that. We first started collecting a whole bunch of food, clothes, supplies, and was hauling it, sending it to Puerto Rico, but then shipment to Puerto Rico stopped, like it was being stopped. And we started getting intimidated about, sending things because it just wasn't getting to the people. So my wife and I decided we should grow something. We actually had a meeting with a group of individuals that had an idea of having gardens in homes, and we were the only ones from the group that actually were serious about it. And we did it. And thankfully, Lorna, the owner of La Casita Azul, El Elefante Sabio, she's been around my wife Itiba's life for a while. And she has the music and arts venue. And when we proposed to her the idea of having a community garden to help, sustainable foods and to bring sustainable foods into our, into our plates, into our homes, and to educate, kids and to educate people, she loved the idea. She was like, okay, but you guys take care of everything. I ain't got nothing to do with it. That's y'all, baby. Okay. We took care of it just like that. We actually had a board of people that were that are very respectful and they're very hard workers. We all had a meeting. We gave positions, and from there, we've been working hard. Thankfully, we had our first couple grants, and we worked on getting the 501c3 status to be in the public organization. Thankfully, that's happening. And that actually went. And all of that happened actually because since I thought I was giving up on music, I started going to school.
Okay.
So I started going to school for plant sciences, specializing in horticulture and technology, which now I'm changing the major to sustainable agriculture.
Okay.
Which is better. This is my field. What I
wow. Isn't that amazing? Musician with intelligence. No.
And that's why the album is called Growth, because that's what I'm actually in. Yeah, like I said, hip hop, you can't write. I'm not gonna write music about Lamborghinis or fast cars. Or right now, I'm married and I have kids. I'm perfectly fine. So I'm not gonna make music about falling in love or make music, R&B music about trying to have sex with women or people. Honestly, because I'm beyond that point. I'm a father of 3. I'm not living that life. So I had to change.
So you basically want to make sure that whenever you do your music, that your music is true to what life really is.
Yeah, true. Yes, exactly. Hip hop music, it has to be true to you. It has to be true. You cannot be speaking. See, you cannot be speaking blasphemy, because whatever you speak, you manifest. And through my philosophies and through my transitions, through the homelessness, through the spiritual awakening, I've learned so much, and the only thing I can do is give that message out. It was given, and a message given, and a person shall not die with a message, and the message shall be wasted. Okay. So I'm a musician, so what a best way to get the message that way than the music.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And again, as we made mention about the community garden that he is involved in, him and his wife. If you would like to have a little bit more information about the community garden, please check out our web page on Shaman Bag Boutique. We also involved with A Shaman's Way,
our web page on Facebook. And then the name of the web page for the garden is what now?
It's you can find it either in Spanish or English. It's Jardín Comunitario Trompa Sur or Blue Trunk Community Garden. You can find it there. You can find it as a page or as a group.
Okay.
We have a lot of activity in the group. A lot of people post stuff. You can actually share a lot of your ideas, home remedies. You know, even things that you thought that your grandmother probably taught you, and you think it's very interesting. You go ahead and put it in there, even if it's a food recipe with fresh food, or you know, we're open to anything that has to do with agriculture and anything we can bring to you know, to putting into work.
Right. Again, this was Maji. Thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Of course.
This is part 3 of this video. We had to break it up because of lighting. Sorry about that. But thank you again for joining us. I'm Wayne Winding Eagle.
And I am Maji.
He is Maji. I am him.
And I am you.
And with that being said, Wadu, thank you. And may the Great Spirit always be with you.
Many blessings.